The Chemosphere House, designed by John Lautner. Once known as the most modern home built in the world by the Encyclopedia Britannica. In the late 1950s, an engineer named Leonard Mullen was gifted a piece of land just off the rarefied neighborhood of Mulholland Drive by his father. This piece of land was considered by many to be impossible to build on and consequently almost worthless. There were two common methods for building houses on a difficult sloped land. The ground could be cut to create a level platform, or the house could be supported on an open steel framework. To build a conventional structure on the plot would have been too expensive. Mullen went to see the architect John Lautner, who had been working on a nearby house, and asked him if he could work on this project. The cost of the house was $140,000, but Mullen only paid $80,000. The rest of the cost was taken up by the gas company, Southern California Gas, and ChemSeal Corporation. These companies inspired the name of the house, Chemosphere, and during construction, both companies experimented with different types of resins, glues, and coatings. The site of the house is located northwest of Hollywood Hills, and it sits on the north side of the Briar Summit Open Space Preserve. The orientation of the house creates a main view overlooking the Burbank area. Built in 1960, it is a single-story house with an octagonal shape and about 2,200 square feet of floor space. You arrive from Torreyson Drive to a carport and then ascend up the slope on a private funicular lift. A bridge then leads you to the entrance, which is right next to the balcony. There have been a couple of owners since the Mullen sold the residence in 1976. The house's second owner, Dr. Richard Kuhn, was actually murdered in his home during a robbery in 1977. His body was found in the home, and two young men were charged for the murder and robbery. The Los Angeles Times described the house in an article as the doctor's saucer-shaped Hollywood Hills home. Along with the fact that the house was known as the murder house, the unusual design also made it difficult for the Chemosphere House to sell. During the 1980s and 90s, the house was rented out and used quite often as the ultimate LA party house. It fell into a state of disrepair as a result of all the misuse. The house had suffered from some very inconsiderate renovations. By 1997, the interior of the house had become quite run down. But in 1998, Benedict Taschen of the German publishing house Taschen purchased the home. He had the home completely restored, and in 2004, the Chemosphere was declared a Los Angeles Historic Cultural Monument. Lautner proposed a design for a home that rose above the 45-degree incline, a proposed solution to construction on very steep terrain. The house is meant to solve problems by an engineer's point of view. It would be supported by a 30-foot by 5-foot wide concrete column, leaving the natural surroundings untouched. Lautner tried to integrate the building with the environment, creating an organic flow between the interior and exterior. It was considered a brilliant structural solution to the problems of building on its precipitous site. This work avoided conventional excavation of the mountain, the retaining walls, and the increased cost of the project. A key experience is created from the interior point of view, where one can gaze out across the Los Angeles landscape in a relaxed way. The 360-degree view is produced by the enveloping widescreen frames. The glazing stands without any mullions, allowing for an uninterrupted view. In this house, one is not restricted to read space from a single or a series of predetermined points of view. The subject should rather experience space through a gaze and should absorb all visual content through the multiple fields of vision. This experience encourages a spheroidal reading that introduces the possibility for overlapping lines of sight and multiple points of view. A defined roof and ground plane in the house anchors a viewing subject in space and frames the sweeping landscape beyond. One's vision is transported as the octagonal plan stretches continually towards the periphery and a distant horizon. The north side of the house holds the public spaces such as the living room, kitchen, and dining room. The south side, facing the hill, slices into 4 bedrooms and a bathroom. The lower perimeter edge of the house contains built-in wardrobes, a built-in sofa, and a built-in balcony. Sloping edge of the windows becomes a planter on the terrace, which creates the impression of a mass composed of wood and glass, in which it is difficult to distinguish the transition between interior and exterior. At the peak of the house, where the column would continue, Lautner placed a circular roof light in order to provide natural lighting to the deepest part of the floor plan. Under the roof light, there is a fireplace and a seating area. A 20-foot circular concrete foundation was placed in the ground to support the house. A hollow 30-foot concrete column rests on that foundation. 8 diagonal beams were attached to the concrete column. The beams are connected by 8 arms that lead to the center of the column. Wooden floor panels were then placed on top of the structural web to support the floor of the house. The upper structure is composed of 8 curved beams leading to a compression ring in the central steel upper platform deck. The main column actually does not even continue up into the interior, leaving the inside of the house a column-free open space. There were many warnings that the building would fall at the slightest shake, but it survived earthquakes and mudslides in the past 61 years. The structure also somewhat determines the form of the house. The carport is the beginning of the entrance to the house. Once you take the railway car up the slope, you arrive at a narrow bridge which connects the ground of the mountain to the entrance near the kitchen and the balcony. It kind of resembles a treehouse where it must be reached by a ladder, and a small platform serves as a porch and front yard. The structure of the residence is made of steel, timber, and concrete. The foundation and single column are made of concrete. The floor is supported by steel beam members, and the roof is supported by curved portal frames of laminated wood. Roof beams are of laminated wood for greater strength and less weight. The beams were left exposed to the eye and were sprayed with a clear epoxy coating for protection and appearance. Lautner makes a particular choice to tilt all of the glazing inward at the top of the frame, restricting the occupant's field of view. He said the glass was purposefully sloped in, so when you stand up against it, you can't look straight down. You are forced to look at the magnificent view. The tilting of the glass also suppresses the perception of a middle ground. Gazing through a 65-foot interior space, furnishings and occupants populate an intimate foreground condition, while Los Angeles populates a distinct background. By framing all of the surroundings at once, the architecture creates a collapsing effect on the spatial experience in a distinct background and foreground experience. This technique produces a floating sensation and a perception of infinite space.